All right, let's kick off another deep dive. Today we're tackling entrepreneurship, but through a pretty unique lens.
Yeah, definitely.
Adenike Johnson's journey.
Yeah.
And we've got a good mix of sources here.
Mm-hmm.
Excerpts from her platform, Ask Adenike,
Right.
a guide. It's titled Game Clients.
Kitty.
And even a YouTube video, a quick one on how to pronounce her name correctly. So we're covering all the bases.
Got to make sure we get that right.
Absolutely.
It's
So,
not your typical tech founder story, is it? You've got Adenike, starts out in IT, right? But then she pivots, and not just to any business, but to the food industry. With this company, Fibra.
interesting.
What strikes me is how she takes these problem-solving skills from tech and applies them to something totally different.
Right, right. And she even mentioned starting Fiber with just $200, building the whole thing from her living room couch.
Wow.
That scrappiness early on, I think our listener can relate to that.
Oh, for sure.
Especially if they're thinking about starting their own thing.
Yeah, it totally busts that myth that you need tons of funding to get going. Sometimes it's just resourcefulness and a solid idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of good ideas, there's this anecdote about Adenike landing a contract with LA Fitness, all while she's taking a business plan class.
It's a great story.
Tell me more about that. I'm all about that real world learning leading to, real world success. What happened there?
Well, it seems like Adenike always had this doer mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just theorizing, she took what she was learning in class and applied it, boom, directly to her business.
Love that.
And it caught the eye of someone from LA Fitness, and bam, a contract was born.
See, that's the kind of nugget I love digging up for our listener.
Right.
It's not just about Adenike's success, but how
right.
that hustle, that's transferable. What's interesting is she didn't stop at Fiber. She created Adenike to help other entrepreneurs, almost like paying it forward, right?
Yeah, and that's where the real depth comes in. Adenike talks about how lonely and confusing it can be for startup founders. She wishes she had better guidance, so Ask Adenike is her solution, offering that step-by-step support she craved.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of that support.
Okay.
Her Game Clients Guide. It outlines 7 steps.
7 steps.
I know we can't cover all of them, but which ones jumped out at you as most useful for someone just starting out?
2 in particular. First, Adenike is big on niching down, like laser focus on a target audience.
Okay.
She goes beyond just basic demographics, though. She talks about crafting detailed buyer personas, like understanding their motivations, their fears, even their aspirations.
That makes sense. It's about going deeper than just who to the why behind them. But wouldn't that limit your customer base if you're so niche?
It seems counterintuitive, I know, but Adenike argues that by speaking directly to a specific group's needs, you actually stand out more in a crowded marketplace.
Interesting. Okay, what's the second step that grabbed you?
This one might be predictable, given her IT background, but Adenike is a big proponent of content marketing and SEO.
Yeah.
And she's not just throwing out buzzwords. She gives actionable advice on how to create valuable content, stuff that resonates with your audience, and making sure it can be found online.
Yeah, that's crucial these days, right? You can have the best product or service, but if nobody can find you online, it's like you don't even exist.
Exactly.
What's fascinating to me is how she blends this tech savvy with real world relationship building.
Absolutely. She talks a lot about networking, referrals. It's a good reminder that business is about building genuine connections. But what really sets Adenike apart is how she took this major personal challenge and turned it into a source of strength, a platform for empowerment even.
You're talking about her diagnosis in 2020 with spasmodic dysphonia?
Yes, exactly. It's a neurological condition that affects the voice.
Wow.
Imagine the impact on someone who builds businesses and communities through speaking.
That's got to be tough.
But instead of letting it silence her, Adenike reframed it as a superpower.
Okay, we need to unpack this. What exactly is spasmodic dysphonia? How does it affect someone beyond, just making it harder to speak?
So basically, it's a condition where the muscles you use for speech, they spasm involuntarily. It can make your voice sound strained, breathy. Sometimes you even lose your voice completely. But the impact goes way beyond the physical.
Yeah, I can imagine the emotional and social toll that takes.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Imagine the frustration of not being able to communicate clearly, the potential isolation, the impact on your work. It's a huge challenge. And yet Adenike has found a way to turn this challenge into something positive.
I'm really curious to hear how she does that. What does she mean by calling it a superpower?
It's about reframing the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
seeing that limitations can also be sources of strength.
Okay.
For Adenike, having to confront this voice disorder, it pushed her to find new ways to communicate, to connect, to advocate for herself and for others.
It sounds like it forced her to get creative, resourceful.
And it led to her founding the Ask Adenike Foundation, right?
Exactly. This foundation focuses on raising awareness and providing support for people with spasmodic dysphonia and other invisible disabilities.
So it's not just about SD.
No, it's broader than that. It's about creating a world where these individuals are seen, heard, and valued for their abilities, regardless of their challenges.
It's incredible how she's taken something so personal and turned it into a movement for greater understanding and inclusivity. But I'm wondering, how does this all tie back to her main message of doers get things done?
That's a great question, and it leads us into a deeper exploration of her entrepreneurial philosophy.
Okay, let's take a break here and dive into that in the next part of our deep dive. We'll be right back.
So we were just talking about Adenike's foundation and that doers get things done mantra. It's inspiring, but like, what does that actually look like, in her approach to entrepreneurship?
It's not just about like taking action just to take action. It's about being intentional, strategic, and aligning your actions with your values.
Okay.
Adenike really emphasizes building a business that supports your lifestyle, not the other way around.
That's a refreshing perspective. I think so many entrepreneurs, especially in that startup grind, they talk about sacrificing everything for their business like it's a badge of honor.
Right. But Adenike challenges that whole mindset. She
Hmm.
talks about setting boundaries, protecting your peace, creating systems that allow you to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between pursuing your passion, but also maintaining your well-being.
I think our listeners will appreciate hearing that because it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget about self-care.
Oh, for sure.
But let's circle back to spasmodic dysphonia for a minute. It's clearly a big part of Adenike's story, not just personally, but professionally.
Hmm.
How has it influenced her perspective on voice and empowerment and, I mean, beyond just the physical act of speaking?
It's an interesting evolution, for sure. Think about it. She built her career on communication, on using her voice to connect, to teach, to inspire. And then this condition comes along and throws a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
It would be so understandable to feel silenced, disempowered.
Absolutely. And yet she calls it her superpower. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, it's a powerful reframing. Instead of viewing SD as some kind of defeat, she sees it as a catalyst for growth.
Okay.
It forced her to find new ways to express herself, to use different communication tools, and to become an even stronger advocate for herself and others facing similar challenges.
She talks about finding your voice even when it feels like you've lost it. It's a metaphor, right?
It is, but it's also deeply personal for her. It's about recognizing that your voice isn't limited to just the sound you make. It's about your message, your perspective, your ability to influence and inspire. And for Adenike, it's about using her platform to amplify the voices of those who are often overlooked, marginalized.
Which brings us back to the Ask Adenike Foundation. What can you tell us about its mission and impact?
They're doing amazing work, raising awareness and providing support for people with spasmodic dysphonia and other invisible disabilities. And they're not just focused on the medical aspects. They're advocating for greater understanding, inclusivity, and accessibility in all areas of life.
So it's about more than just awareness. It's about creating real change.
Exactly. It's about shifting societal perceptions, challenging assumptions, and creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their differences. And it all goes back to that core message of doers get things done. Adenike isn't just talking about the importance of action. She's living it.
Right.
She's turning her personal challenges into opportunities to empower others and make a real difference in the world.
That message really resonates with me, especially in the context of her entrepreneurial journey. She didn't just dream of starting a business or helping others, she made it happen. There's a lot we can all learn from that.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to create something meaningful, to overcome obstacles, and to use our voices to advocate for what we believe in. Adenike's story is a testament to the power of resilience, innovation, and pursuing your purpose.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've covered a lot, from Adenike's journey from tech to entrepreneurship, to her work empowering others, and her incredible strength in the face of spasmodic dysphonia.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in Adenike's world. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll be delving into a side of her we haven't touched on yet. Her creative side, specifically her venture into music.
It's going to be fascinating to see how she expresses herself through this new medium. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We've been deep diving into the world of Adenike Johnson, and now we're taking a turn you might not expect, her music.
That's not just a side hobby or anything. It's deeply connected to everything we've been talking about.
Yay.
We've talked about her journey from tech to entrepreneurship, her advocacy for people with invisible disabilities, and that doer mentality she has.
Uh-huh.
Well, her music, specifically a creation called Mute, brings all these elements together.
Okay, Mute. That title instantly piqued my interest. It seems almost, I don't know, contradictory considering her work with spasmodic dysphonia.
Yeah.
What's the story behind this piece?
So Mute isn't just a song. It's an artistic statement born directly from her experience with SD.
Hmm.
Remember, this is a condition that affects the voice, something, many musicians rely on heavily.
Right, of course.
But instead of being silenced by it, Adenike found a new way to express herself through this medium.
It's like she turned a limitation into a creative springboard. I'm guessing Mute isn't just about the music itself, but also carries a deeper message.
You got it. It's about reclaiming her voice, but in a different form. It's about challenging perceptions surrounding invisible disabilities, showing that creativity can thrive even in the face of adversity.
That's really powerful, and it ties back to that idea we've been talking about, that our voices aren't limited to the sounds we make. They can be expressed through art, action, the impact we have on the world.
Exactly. And by sharing Mute with the world, Adenike is raising awareness about SD in a way that's both personal and universal. It allows listeners to connect with her experience on an emotional level, sparking empathy and understanding.
It's another example of her doer spirit in action. She's not just talking about these issues, she's expressing them through her art, inviting others into the conversation. It's pretty remarkable.
It is, and it reminds us that creativity can be a powerful tool for healing, for self-discovery, for advocating for what we believe in.
So before we wrap up, for our listener who might be hearing Adenike's story for the first time, what's the one key takeaway you'd want them to walk away with?
Hmm. I think it's that limitations, whether they're physical, societal, or even self-imposed, they don't have to define us.
Right.
Adenike's journey shows us that we can turn challenges into opportunities for growth, for innovation, even artistic expression.
It's about finding your own voice, your own unique way to make a difference. And remember, doers get things done.
And if Adenike's story has inspired you at all, I definitely encourage you to seek out her work. You can find her website, her Ask Adenike platform, and of course, give Mute a listen. You won't be disappointed.
And as promised, here's the correct pronunciation of her name, just like in that YouTube video, Adenike. We always want to be respectful of names and cultures.
Absolutely. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about our commitment to understanding and honoring each other's stories.
Well, this has been an incredibly inspiring deep dive. Adenike Johnson is a true force of nature, and I have a feeling we'll be hearing a lot more from her in the years to come.
I agree. She's a shining example of what's possible when you combine passion, purpose, and that unwavering determination to make a difference.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep being awesome.